Everybody to our second presentation as a DAI company. Today we are going to talk about an interesting project we had in Turkey and which resulted at the end with this project being presented almost to every presentation, which was including Ministry of Environment. And these are the data from the Low Carbon Development Project. This project was implemented from 2017 to 2020, so not even a year ago it finished, and the project was about building analytical tools for creating strategies and action plans regarding the low carbon development in Turkey. In that regards, we assessed many policies related to the area in Turkey. We assessed the legislation framework, and we created modeling tools in four key sectors which are the backbone of the green growth, and these are waste, the sector of transport, the sector of buildings and agriculture. Today we are going to discuss about the outcomes of this project with our expert in a more broader way, and she will give us more results regarding this project, and she will give respond to the questions what after the Paris Agreement signing and getting into the force with how to say today's date. Our expert is Gamze Çelik-Yılmaz, and she is expert in climate policy. She worked for many years with UNDP, with UNFCCC, also as an expert, and worked with us on the low carbon, and she's working currently with FAO also, and she will give us more details about this project, and later we will discuss about recurrent issues regarding the project. Please.
Thank you very much, Rode. Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for introducing the project, Rode, and thank you very much for your participation. Today, we would like to start our presentation with commemorating our leader Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, who has passed away 83 years ago today, and we appreciate that he founded the Turkish Republic in 1923. Today what we're going to talk about is, as Rada said, we will mostly focus on the low carbon development project outcomes, but the project's outcomes also coincided a lot with the recent developments that Turkey had by ratifying the Paris Agreement. So we will put together the international context together with the results of the project. So we will talk about the enhanced NDCs, the tendencies in the world, and enhanced transparency framework which is emerging now, and Turkey's efforts against climate change and the road ahead for Turkey. And we will continue with the findings of the project, both in terms of the priorities and also the social, economic, environmental co-benefits of GHG mitigation measures. And after the overall prioritization of sectoral policies and measures, we will come up with the key points. There is of course, since the ratification and enforcement of the Paris Agreement, countries start to submit their updated NDCs. And there is a global trend in this sense. I will mention you how much the new NDCs contributed to the global target of 1.5 degrees Celsius, as many resources will tell you, and also all the meetings will in COP26 will inform you that the current updated NDCs cannot take us to 1.5 degrees, unfortunately. So you see that from the old to the new NDCs, there's only a minor improvement so far. And also, please be aware that these are the NDCs that have been updated so far. I mean, there are also the ones that are not updated. So when we talk about the emission gap for 1.5 degrees Celsius, of course, our reference point is the recent UNFCCC publication on the emission gap for the NDCs. According to the report, the total global GHG emission level is estimated to be around 55.1 gigatons CO2 equivalent, and this is with the latest NDCs, and by 2030. And that means that's still almost 60% higher than 1990 levels. So this is not going to take us to 1.5 degrees, definitely. And in absolute terms, compared to the previous NDCs, the updated NDCs pledge only 2.73 gigatons of CO2 equivalent reduction. So this is also not very promising. And so according to the IPCC's global warming of 1.5 degrees report, in order to achieve 1.5 degrees Celsius, we have to have a reduction, we have to have 45% from the 2010 levels by 2030 for 1.5 degrees, and 25% reduction from 2010 levels by 2030, latest around 2070. So it's obvious that there is an urgent need for either a significant increase in the level of ambitions of the NDCs between now and 2030, because it's not enough just to give net zero commitments for 2050 and just wait, but rather we should have intermediary targets and we should follow them closely. Also, we should need a significant overachievement of the latest NDCs. Let's come to the enhanced transparency framework, which seems just like just a new reporting system of the Secretariat, but this is not the case. This is enhanced transparency framework is really important because that's how we can track the progress of the globe, of all the countries in Turkey, in the world. Sorry. So if you look at the graph, so what does that graph tell you? The INDC submitted, the number of INDCs submitted is 193. So all the INDCs are there. But when you look at the updated or second NDCs, it's only 138. So there's already a lot of countries who couldn't submit their updated NDCs. That means these countries have not increased their pledges or increased their commitments. So this is on the one side. And the other side is this, for instance, in the NDCs, energy sector is covered by 193 countries, which is covering all the NDCs so far. But when you look at other sectors, such as, for instance, LULUCF is such an important sector. It determines whether the country is reducing or increasing emissions after excluding LULUCF. And we see that a lot of countries still haven't submitted their emission reduction commitments in these sectors. So we understand that it won't be that easy to go towards the enhanced transparency framework because even the current MRV system is too difficult for so many non-Annex 1 countries. And we are talking about enhancing another system with an enhanced transparency framework. So this will be challenging not only for developing countries but also for developed parties. This is the timeline for enhanced transparency framework globally, and you see that starting from 2024, end of 2024, all countries, all parties, including non-Annex 1 and Annex 1, they will have to comply with enhanced transparency framework, and they will have to submit their biannual transparency reports which is very new for the non-Annex 1 countries again. So you will ask why we are referring to the non-Annex 1 countries, because Turkey is not a non-Annex 1, it's an Annex 1 country, but still Turkey will have to submit its BTR, Biannual Transparency Report, by 2024, and in the meantime there are also a lot of things that Turkey will have to do. That's why we are underlining the importance of that. When we come to Turkey's so far efforts against climate change and the road ahead based on the new developments, let's look at the Turkey's progress so far. As you know, in 2004, Turkey became a party to UNFCCC. In 2009, Turkey ratified the Kyoto Protocol. In 2015, submitted its INDC, and in 2016 signed the Paris Agreement, and in 2021 the country ratified the Paris Agreement. So there's a progress since 2015 in terms of international commitments and requirements. And Turkey has been developing its climate change policies and measures. It's not a new thing. It's not only signing commitments. For instance, Turkey has developed its climate change strategy in 2010 and the National Climate Change Action Plan in 2011. And all national development plans also have items that frame Turkey's climate change policy. For instance, in the 9th development plan, green growth has been mentioned, and that's a big progress for Turkey in that sense. And now climate law is under development, and it's expected to be finalized next year by 2022 with the participation of several stakeholder groups. When we look at Turkey's GHG emission trends, this is the latest emissions from 2019 is the latest one. In 2017, Turkey's emissions has peaked, but then it slowly came down, down until 2019, and this is the tendency for the time being. But we don't know the results of the COVID pandemic, of course, because it had impacts on all economies, but we still don't know the results because their impacts have been reflected in 2020 and 2021 emissions. But you know, the national inventory reports come 2 years after they are emitted, so we don't know 2020 and 2021 for now. So there's an increasing tendency, except the last 2 years. That's what we can say. So these were the basic information about Turkey, as you know. Now let's talk about the analysis of the low carbon development projects. Agriculture, building, transport, and waste sectors. This graph shows the share of the sectoral emissions in Turkey in 2019. These are the most updated emissions. And here, normally the GHG inventories for energy sector include the buildings and transport. But here, since it's a part of the project, we excluded them and we put them out as a separate sector. That's why you see 45% in the energy sector. So you see that when you look at all energy, transport, agriculture, and IPPU, waste, and building sectors, you see that these four sectors, the sectors that the project focused, the agriculture, building, transport, and waste, covers 44% of total Turkey's emissions. This is a huge number. This is 44%, is like almost half of it. So we know that these are important sectors. Energy is really important. Decarbonized power generation is absolutely important, but we should also be careful about these other sectors, which don't look very much contributing to emissions, but actually they do. So in that sense, we have, as I said, we had four sectors: agriculture, building, transport, and waste. So from each sector, there are several policies and measures, measures that have been chosen for analysis. And in agriculture sector, there were four measures, mitigation measures, chosen for analysis. I'm going to tell you the results later on and the prioritization. One was the using fat supplements in the diet of animals to reduce enteric methane emissions. Another was centralized level anaerobic digestion, so power generation from biogas. Another was adjusting fertilizer application rates to realistic yield targets. And final was the crop rotation. And when we go to the building sector, we had 3 proposed mitigation actions: increasing usage rate of energy efficient appliances in buildings, improving energy performance of existing buildings, and energy efficient buildings, heating and cooling systems. For transport, I'm not going to read them one by one, you will see it on the screen. Mostly it was, it focuses on combining different ways of transport, focusing on energy efficiency, changing fuels, and also some other sustainable transport systems like using bicycles. And finally, for waste sector, 2 mitigation actions were analyzed. One was methane utilization for energy production at waste disposal and treatment facilities, and second was improving recycle rate. So there were there were several analyses on these 4 sectors and all these mitigation actions. I was responsible from preparation of the social, economic, and environmental impacts of these projects on the gains and losses. But I will nevertheless give the results of the prioritization of these mitigation actions according to their, based on their mitigation potentials by 2050 and based on their cost-benefit analysis who have been done in the other parts of the project. Let's start with social, economic, and environmental gains and losses. Agriculture has been a very interesting sector when we go for social, environmental, economic impacts, because all mitigation actions had pros and cons in terms of social, environmental, and economic results. So, for instance, centralized level anaerobic digesters, when we look at the benefits, of course, you definitely create new jobs for farm enlargements, and a lot of renewable energy potential, and definitely fuel switching from fossil to renewable. That's a great potential, but there are also negative sides, which when we make policies, for instance, GHG mitigation policies, we don't really consider these social effects, but these are really important to when you want to consider the externalities. So, for instance, with negative sides on the centralized level anaerobic digesters, it is dependence of feed-in tariffs on political circumstances, for instance, or unclear impacts on yields, limited knowledge and practices. And also, you don't know the. You have to keep the certain efficiency and certain continuity of the plants, and they have large initial investment costs, definitely. And therefore, when these impacts have been considered, our stakeholders groups, which were mainly experts, Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry, and also the Ministry of Environment, we came together, made workshops, and we decided that we would like to prioritize these mitigation actions in terms of social impact. And the centralized level anaerobic digestion has led among the others based on their pros and cons. And then came the crop rotation with legumes, and then adjusting fertilizer application rates to realistic targets, and finally using fat supplement in the diet to reduce enteric methane came as the last. For instance, when we talk about this fourth one, using fat supplement in the diet to reduce enteric methane sounds very promising, but then when you look at the real applications in the world, you see that it's still on a trial period, so we don't really know the results, and since we don't have samples and anyone trying it, we don't know the results, and you don't really want to do any kind of investment for any project that you don't know the results. When we come to the building sector, there are also pros and cons in all three mitigation actions, but most of them are pros. All three mitigation actions have been promising and useful, have been found to be useful. For instance, for energy efficient buildings and heating and cooling systems, increased indoor air quality depending on the technologies, decreased household energy expenses, creating employment opportunities, promoting innovation and reducing energy consumption have been the positive sides. When we talk about energy efficient buildings, we only think about the first investment cost, how much money we will save, and how much GHG emissions we're going to save. But in fact, when you consider that it will actually decrease the household energy expenses, that means that will increase the accessibility and affordability of energy services for low-income families. So when you consider these kind of externalities, actually these the value of the importance of the mitigation actions change a lot. And here, according to our work, according to social, environmental, economic impact work, increasing the usage rate of energy efficient appliances in buildings have turned out to be more socially, environmentally, economically desirable compared to the other ones. The details of these studies and why these have been are on the website of the project, www.lowcarbonturkey.org. So you can find detailed reports, all these social, environmental, economic results. And finally, we have transport sector, and the transport sector was like comparing apples with pears, because the mitigation actions are so different from each other, but they all have social, economic, environmental benefits, absolutely. For instance, the numbers are not written here, but for instance, if we talk about combining intercity travel, mitigation action like mitigation action 1, we provide increasing access and affordability of intercity travel and helping social equity. That means if you increase public transport within and without, inside and outside the cities, that will increase gender equality, because then women who don't have cars will be able to have more job opportunities outside the city as well. So we really don't think about these things, but actually these kind of policies and measures have very significant social impacts, especially for low-income societies. When we made the prioritization, the highest vote was given for vehicle fuel efficiency and electric vehicles, increasing the shares of the hybrid LPG and electric vehicles. But of course, second and third have been also very much desired. And they are intracity transport, increasing the share of public transport, absolutely, and expanding intermodal and combined transport in intercity passenger transport. And the last one was increasing the use of alternative fuels. That was the last one, mainly because of the environmental concerns, because production of bioethanol requires land and land use. So it actually jeopardizes the food security, which has becoming a big issue all over the world. So these have been the transport. And finally, the waste sector was, as you know, there were two policies on focus. One was improving recycling rate, and the second was methane utilization for energy production, so basically biogas plants. and actually both have been very useful, but the priority choice was methane utilization for energy production at waste disposal and treatment facilities, closely followed by improving recycling rate, because it's very much important. Recycling is not only recycling, but it also aligns with circular economy, and it's important in countries like Turkey, where most of the raw materials are imported. So these are the list of prioritized mitigation actions, and I will show you one by one again, but I will be quick. I won't take much time, so we can start discussing with my colleague Rade. With agriculture sector, the main reason that centralized level anaerobic digestion was prioritized was that animal manure is the very efficient feedstock for the biogas plants, and it has high GHG mitigation potential from manure management. So on one side you work on manure management, on the other hand you actually do fuel shifting from fossil fuel to biological fuel. And this was made on times modeling, so this was totally based on numbers and modeling, and with our colleagues who did that. And adjusting fertilizer application rates to realistic yields have been also very promising in Turkey's agriculture sector, because it has very low mitigation cost based on times modeling results. So it's a price performance ratio was really good in a daily wording, and it was also seen as the most preferred action by the stakeholders, which have been determined during our workshops. And the building sector, when we consider the mitigation potential and the cost-benefit analysis, the best option have been decided to be improving energy performance of existing buildings. This was again modeled by Times-Markle model, and also the cost-benefit analysis have been made, and marginal abatement curve, cost curves have been also made. So if you'd like to see the details, please see our website, and all reports are there. And when we come to transport sector, these four mitigation actions have been prioritized, but you need to understand that these are for the modeling has been made for 2050. So in order to benefit the most from these mitigation actions, the technology change and investments are to be completed by 2035. This is a very high commitment actually for any country, not only for Turkey, but for any country, to change the whole system by 2035, which is quite soon. But there is this, in every day that you delay the investments, every day the mitigation actions get more expensive. So that was also another result of the project. And finally, the waste sector, according to cost-benefit analysis and GHG mitigation analysis, the methane utilization for energy production at waste disposal and treatment facilities have been also taken as the preferred mitigation action, just like in the social, environment, economic one. So this mitigation measure has been determined to be both socially, environmentally, and economically the chosen one, and also GHG mitigation and cost effectiveness wise it was the best. So we hope that Turkey considers these results in the upcoming 2053 strategies. From our project we have key points and lessons learned. I would like to quickly go over them without taking your time. As I said, with the ratification of the Paris Agreement, Turkey has turned another corner, important corner, for its commitment to tackling global climate change. And it's been progressing, but there are still a lot of things that the country needs to do, especially a clear national and sectoral strategy to reach the net zero goal in 2053 should be developed as soon as possible, and the outcomes of this strategy should be mainstreamed in the other policies and measures in the other sectors. I mean, the strategy should not stand alone. The mitigation actions should be mainstreamed in all sectors. Also, in order to comply with the enhanced transparency framework, an updated NDC that complies with ETF should be prepared as soon as possible, because we have biannual transparency report by 2024, but we have biannual report in 2022. So we really don't have much time. Other outcome was the project was there's a need for strengthening institutional capacities for enhancing monitoring system in all sectors. Turkey's MRV system in GHG inventories is good, but there's always space for improving, and also this ETF requires a bit more details than current MRV system. Also, there's a need for enhancing cooperation among institutions, because yes, Ministry of Environment, Urbanization and Climate Change is leading. However, sectoral support and sectoral input is needed much more than before. So increased cooperation is also needed. Total cost of a mitigation action, as I previously said, includes also social, economic and environmental impacts. So while deciding on any policy or measure, these externalities should also be considered among the costs or the benefits of the policies, definitely. And once you make a policy and once you start implementing it, it affects the next 40, 50 years. So you cannot make decisions in a vacuum. You have to think ahead what's going to happen. And also, the project showed us that there's a lack of data in many sense, in many areas, not only in agriculture, but in all sectors that we worked on. So there's a R&D necessity to increase, and on data gathering and quality of data consistency, on time series. We need all these improvements, and these require a lot of contribution from research institutes. So that's a big room for cooperation between the research institutions and the state institutions. And successful implementation of policies and profiting from their benefits require well planning in advance, as I just mentioned, but also national circumstances should be considered, and all stakeholders should be involved in all decision-making mechanisms. So I thank you very much for your attention, and I invite my colleague, first of all, Rade, to ask questions.
Thank you, Gamze, for the presentation.
Thank you.
We discussed before coming here, yes, about some issues to be clarified. One of is in light of the signing of the Paris Agreement and getting into the force exactly today on this date. What are now the commitments? What it changed regarding Turkish obligations in regards to the NDC and ETF?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and NDC and ETF is the most challenging part maybe for Turkey, because before, since Turkey hadn't signed the Paris Agreement, Turkey did not submit an updated NDC. Now we urgently have to submit an updated NDC, and that should be before 2020, so that 2022, so that we can make the biannual report accordingly. And the NDC is not simply enhancing the targets anymore, because it has additional requirements, such as the indicators that you give to the Secretariat for monitoring the progress, so the global stocktake can take place. So therefore, that requires a lot of monitoring, thinking, planning ahead. And of course, another thing is that we have net zero emission target for 2053, and for that we should, we will make a strategy for net zero. And this strategy cannot be just a national strategy document paper. It has to be, all targets have to be mainstreamed in all sectors. I'm not only talking about energy. We said transport, it's like 17%. That's a lot of percentage. These are the main parts, I will say.
Thanks. Another question is obviously this transformation to net zero needs to be financed. It needs to, and as we know, Turkey cannot, how to say it, is not part of the Green Climate Fund as a beneficiary country. So does it anything is changing for Turkey regarding now joining as a Paris Agreement commitments and entering this framework of ETF? Does something changes in how to say approachability to the financial how to say frameworks elsewhere?
Yeah. Well, there are no particular funds that now Turkey is eligible, which was not eligible before, apart from the $3 billion we are expecting as a part of our commitment for Paris Agreement. But Turkey has been already having some climate financing from international institutions. I mean, Turkey is still eligible for GEF, and Turkey is still cooperating bilaterally with European Commission and other financing sources through either loans or grants for financing its achieving its GHG emission goals. However, there is always space for improvement. I would rather say the banks have an important role in this. I'm talking about multilateral development banks like EBRD. Turkey is already cooperating with them, but I think they can be enhanced a bit more to mobilize the private financing in Turkey. And we should also focus on we should also think of sectoral climate financing. We cannot think of just climate financing overall. We should really think of the sectors. I hope I could answer, and if you have any, if you'd like to add anything on top of that.
No. For me, just how to say, I think it's more support needed. Also from as you said, from multilateral organizations for Turkey to compensate something that is practically, I think that Turkey should be a part of Green Climate Fund, but it's not. So it's something to think about how international community can compensate Turkey in this development. Another question. We analyzed where we are and when we want to be, let's say, but how we are going to reach the targets. Does low carbon development project gives any other, how to say, directions on how we are going to achieve the strategy of 2053? What are the other steps that needs to be done?
Well, low carbon development strategy, the low carbon development project for Turkey has been a very interesting and pioneering project, I think, because this is the first time there is such a detailed work both on GHG mitigation potentials and cost-benefit analysis, together with social, environmental, and economic impacts, the externalities, because there has been no such study before in that depth in those sectors. So I think the project's outcomes provided some good background for Turkey's decisions over the last couple of years, which after the end of the project, and I believe it even had some contribution to the decision made on signing the Paris Agreement, because you can't make decisions if you're not informed. You can't manage something that you don't know about. So I think that has been useful. What can be done? Well, I think similar projects needs to come, and they have to be repeated from time to time, because their developments are going a lot. For instance, this project has been done before the COVID pandemic. So let's see how the economy moves after the COVID, and how it affects the GHG mitigation and the emissions itself as well in those sectors. So actually, we need to do these analysis more often and regularly, and I think the capacities of the state institutions could be increased furthermore, not only for these 4 sectors, but probably for all emission sectors. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Any other question?
Hi, thank you for your nice presentation.
Thank you.
I have a question. You don't take into account the building materials, for instance, concrete or other materials. And also, I would like to ask about have you take, or you will take into account the concrete carbonation as a mitigation way to reduce the impact on the climate change?
Do you mean the building sectors here?
Building sector, yeah, building sector only. I've seen, well, windows, energy efficiency, but depending on the material, this is quite different. And for instance, the concrete, you have the thermal mass, and also concrete carbonation, and etc. And wood is a different way, and still also is quite different. Have you taken this into account in your study, or you will take this into account? Because depending on the country, for instance, Turkey is one of the main cement producers. And you have a lot of concrete. Probably it could be interesting to compare this with other materials that, well, as far as I know, wood in Turkey, not very much, I think.
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. That was very interesting. The building sector assessment in this project did not focus on the concrete, the production of concrete. The main reason is that we started to make a base study to lead new studies. So from now on, when we have a next study on building sector, for instance, we can also focus on the concrete. But please don't forget that this is also this project has been in line with national GHG inventories. So these inventories don't take into consideration the emissions from concrete production, because this is upstream emissions, what you're talking about. It requires life cycle assessment, and every company had different concrete GHG emissions from concrete. One company can produce 1 tons of GHG per ton of concrete, and the second one can do 2 tons of emissions. So it's plant-based emissions you're talking about. This one is totally national GHG inventories. Because we would like to shape the national policies, so we can't go upstream or downstream of these, for instance. Yeah, thank you. But it's a good point. I think it should be included if we are talking about net zero. Yeah, thank you.
Any other question? Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. And if you have any questions, as I said, there's this project website, www.lowcarbonturkey.org. So you can find all the results and reports. Thank you. Thank you very much.